I'm a great dancer.
Fortnite Battle Pass.
Just in time for the 10th anniversary, I found a special gift in my recommendation feed, a proposed Nickelodeon pilot for Star vs. the Forces of Evil uploaded on YouTube. As you can see, it has a completely different look, a different tone, a different premise, and just in general, it's a completely different show when putting it in close proximity to the actual one. Since this pitch is only a minute long, you'd assume that there's little to nothing worth talking about aside from those differences. And you'd be right. There really isn't much to it. But you see, I couldn't just talk about this early pilot in a measly little YouTube short. I mean, it's the 10th anniversary of this show. I have to celebrate it somehow. Like, why wouldn't a man who's old enough to pay taxes dedicate a full video to this? It'd be like a Spider-Man channel that doesn't talk about Spider-Man. Hello everyone, Stardweeb here to ruin your day, and you can leave it to me to dedicate more than 10 minutes on a topic that's probably worth talking about in less than 5 minutes. Join me as I take you to a time before the series turned 10, before the series was even a thing, before Starco, before Toxic Demon Yaoi, and before there were video essays claiming it fell off harder than Shamik Moore trying to eye his Gwen Stacy. That hurt my soul. Ow. This is the scrapped version of Star vs. the Forces of Evil, otherwise known as Star and the Forces of Evil. Said Forces of Evil include hallucinogenic drugs and imagination. Now I'm sure you're probably asking, wait, why was this on Nickelodeon? I always thought it was a Disney show. Gee, isn't it odd that Nick would reject not one but multiple shows that became popular on someone else's channel? Wow, they really fumbled the bag not picking up these great shows. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if Adventure Time was a Nicktoon instead of a cartoon? No. To answer this question, we'll have to go back in time to 2008 to put Star on the menu. That's right, we're going back in time to 2008 to put Star on the menu. And what was announced in 2008? Why, the Cartoonstitute. Remember that? I mean, how could you not? Maybe it's because there is no Cartoonstitute, it was cancelled. But wait, wasn't that a Cartoon Network program? What the fuck? I thought this was about Nickelodeon. What about my Nick? Hosted by Craig McCracken of the Powerpuff Girls and Rob Renzetti of My Life as a Teenage Robot, the Cartoonstitute would have served as an independent pitch compilation akin to What a Cartoon, where many animators get to create their own short stories that could potentially be picked up for a full television show on Cartoon Network. Though to stay relevant with today's topic and not make a 40-minute documentary about it, the program was scrapped after discovering the expected 39 shorts to be put in development weren't gonna cut it due to a certain economic event going on between 2007 and 2009. I'll let you look it up on your own time to see what I'm referring to. As a result, they only had the budget to complete about 14 of said 39 shorts, and out of these 14 shorts, only 2 of them were actually chosen for a full series. The rest would later be archived on YouTube, or if lucky, were uploaded to Cartoon Network's official website. But probably not anymore, thanks to anti-cartoonist dictator David Zaslav. You wanna know what really grinds my gears? You, David. Fuck you. This is where future creator Darren Nefsey comes in, pitching her passion project to this very program. It turns out that the Cartoonstitute just so happened to be where she pitched her show during her 3rd year of college. Sadly, it's also where the Cartoon Network side of things end. They rejected this pitch, alongside dozens of others, which now that I bring this up, there seem to have been way more documentation about the fact it was pitched to Cartoon Network than Nickelodeon, but since the leaked pitch confirms the Nick copyright, we can assume that it was at least one of the networks that Darren pitched it to in 2009, and all hope seemed dire until the show became the unofficial 3rd cartoon that was pulled from the ashes of cancellation by none other than Michael Mouse. But not without a few drastic changes, of course. But what exactly did they change about Star, asked the 1% of you hearing me talk? Well, at the same time the pitch animation leaked, an entire 17-page pitch bible for Star and the Forces of Evil also went public via a Catbox link. For those who don't know, a pitch bible is basically, well, a Bible.
This is the Bible.
You question the words of the mighty Jimmy?
It works as a treatment to summarize what your project is, often providing in-depth descriptions of who the characters are, what the premise is about, and even some concept art. In Star's case, it has not one, but 2 Bibles, one of which is closer to the official Disney series we got, but we'll put a pin on that for now and focus more on this one, the original Bible. While most information about this early draft was known for years, this gives us a somewhat broader look into it. And just like a real Bible, the moment you read its words, you're already a believer in Starverse's supremacy. Was gonna make a star power joke, but I don't want to come off as racist. Instead of being about an actual magical princess from another dimension, the series originally envisioned Star as a 5th grade schoolgirl who only believes to be a magic superhero akin to the likes of Rainbow Bright and Sailor Moon. Oblivious to the world around her, Star's powers and abilities would all happen in her head as opposed to IRL, using ordinary objects like a water bottle as a weapon, or yelling out ridiculous made-up phrases like spin sneak attack. The audience would see her spin into a glittery tornado with small magical creatures, stars, and all sorts of colors, but in reality it cuts to her leaping around like a little dummy. Because of this, she would often be seen as a weirdo by other kids at school. Still, she'd commit to fighting non-existent monsters, going on her own little adventures in her neighborhood, and finding ways of saving others regardless of whether or not they needed saving. You can think of this premise like a kid's version of Fear-Loathing in Las Vegas mixed with Xavier Renegade Angel, minus my drug overdose.
And what do you call these wind monkeys?
The Bible goes on to describe the main North Hollywood setting as not an easy one. Like, instead of a kingdom, Star lives with her mom in a rundown apartment just a block away from an antique store, and even the school would be run down with a fair share of mean girls, bullies, and teachers who ain't having any of this shit anymore. The aforementioned mean girls would be Jenna and Mallory, best friends since kindergarten. These 2 would have been the unpopular girls of the school, much to their dismay. And according to the Bible, they also would have been friends of Star before she became magic obsessed and eventually got on their nerves. Obviously, they never appeared in the show, but honestly, if they did, they'd still look like background NPCs, just saying. That's probably what they were gonna be, but I suppose Jenna here might have been loosely resurrected as Janna in the final version of the show, and if I'm right, well, we definitely got the best outcome. She's my goat. As for Star's magical world, before Muni was a thing, it would have been a fantasy-inspired planet filled with various interesting creatures that only Star herself was able to see. One of these creatures would have been Boris, a Russian moth monster that really makes me question the multiversal nationality of these characters. Like, even in the final show, the burning question we all had was never what Toffee's motive was, or why Marco has $650 on him all the time, even though it's already been answered.
You have merchandise?
Yeah, I get a $650 royalty check every month.
Nah, none of that. What we really wanted to know was why the fuck is Star American when her entire family lineage is British? Anyways, the imaginary world would have been a mixture of saturated Japanese pop art with an explosive rainbow color palette. As for the art itself, it was heavily inspired by the quote, cute but creepy works of manga artist Junko Mizuno. For those who didn't know, Junko Mizuno art is often termed as being gothic kawaii, quote unquote, though she denounces such terms since she herself was influenced by shoujo and shonen art with a psychedelic flair. Characters in her drawings would have large eyes, abstract details, and heavy use of bright colors. You can actually see this influence carry on to the final show's art style, though it is more of its own thing, albeit not the most consistent. Like, dude, it's crazy to think how you can see the actual animation change mid-scene in the exact same episode. Holy shit. Like, look at this. This deserves to be on a YouTube thumbnail. Not gonna lie, as cute as this premise sounds, so long as you don't think about the depressing implications of escaping the dystopian reality we're in by creating an imaginary realm where severed unicorn heads float above marshmallow clouds and rats nibble on pop rocks and coke. I don't really think this is the kind of premise that would warrant 100 episodes of a series, to be honest. It definitely feels like a one-joke type of idea where Star attempts to solve a conflict with her imaginary powers, making said conflict work worse are unresolved, all because she can't separate her fantasies from reality, rinse and repeat. While there's no denying that had this idea been greenlit, they probably would have elevated the formula, where her overactive imagination could also lead her to learn more about the real world and how it functions as an episode progresses. And as she'd get older, I don't know, maybe she'd get the best of her reality and distinguish what's make-believe and what's really there. Putting that aside, the idea is cute, but not enough to carry a full show without sounding repetitive, and I'm the motherfucker who gets a stupid grin on my face whenever I see Star doing some dumb shit. And besides, the official show for the most part does further mature Star as the later seasons progress, but as this was a first draft, I can definitely see why Disney requested them to change a lot of this idea to what it is now. On top of all that, it's a blessing in disguise that this wasn't a Nicktoon, because I'll be honest, if it was, they would have dropped this shit after one season for not stacking any SpongeBob level paper and bitches. I mean, this is Nickelodeon we're talking about. They're the same guys who axed glitch text but were fully confident of revealing who Influencer Smurf was, who definitely smurfed a minor. This finally brings us to the pitch animation uploaded by Derps on YouTube, just 2 days after the annual holiday celebration that was its anniversary. And how was this 1 minute long animation? I mean, it's alright. I absolutely respect it for being a relic of what could have been, but it really doesn't say much about the show. I get it's a pitch, but even as such, it only vaguely gives you an idea of what the show's about, which in hindsight explains why I spent most of this video talking about a failed shorts program and preaching Star Bible verses. It starts off with Star hopping around like the little goober she is, and these two kids just fuck off somewhere else, I guess. Then the Russian moth I mentioned earlier comes out of nowhere and asks if he can assassinate them or something. He disappears and she tries to warn the kids, but they dismiss her completely. It ends with the moth making it seem like he'll do something fucked up or something. No! But nah, he just wanted to play some tunes, so he just pulls out a trumpet and plays her favorite song. Yep, that's how it ends.
I like your ringtone better.
Certified lover boy, certified.
I guess there are a few things worth noting, like Star being played by Daphne instead of Sue Hack. Of course, Grey Delisle would later be the voice of Jackie in the final version, and even Queen Moon, so like mother like daughter, I guess. Oh, and to make the Nickelodeon talk come full circle, the animation work according to the credits was done by Sayrom Animation, who provided work on many in-house and outsourced cartoons. Most notably, Hey Arnold and Cat Dog, because dear god does this pilot absolutely give me the vibes of a Nicktoon from the 90s. Hey, wait a minute, if Sayrom worked on this, that means there were now 5 confirmed studios that animated this show. Oh my god. One more thing to mention. There's a certain someone who appears to be missing, one of the central main characters of the show that's nowhere to be found in this original treatment. I am, of course, talking about Yuji Itadori.
I like a tall woman with a nice big ass.
He was obviously added after rewrites, but what I wanted to know was where this came from. If you watched my pilot vid from 2023, you'll know that I briefly mentioned the show's initial attempt at Starco, with Marco being the Dragon Ball Z rival to Star's Sailor Moon persona. But to my surprise, neither the Nickelodeon nor Disney pitches actually mention this. In fact, the former doesn't even mention his early presence anywhere. The one source I did find for this rivalry concept was in a Reddit thread, with a linked interview confirming such details. And wouldn't you know it, clicking the link leads to a now defunct Nerdist page where the interview no longer exists. Great, so this is what I get for trusting Reddit. Thankfully, I managed to find it via a few clicks of a Wikipedia reference, leading me to an archive of said interview in its full glory, confirming that yes, there was a point in time where Starco had an anime rivalry. Not that there were any doubts, but seeing how none of this info was in any of the treatments and seemed to be exclusive from this 10-year-old interview, it's safe to assume that this idea didn't make it far enough to be written down. Regardless, I really like this idea. Since Star is already technically a parody of magical girl protagonists, having Marco be portrayed as a Dragon Ball Z fan could create a really fun dynamic between them that I'd like to imagine progresses from being enemies to friends or maybe even lovers, like Dipsifika, Lumity, or if you're cool, Tomko. While the anime influence carried on to the final show, other ideas weren't so lucky, though thankfully some of these ideas got revived in some capacity. There's an episode of season 1 where Star believes there's a magic wand on Earth, simply from reading a magazine ad for banana-flavored pudding. It's certainly a filler episode, but god damn it, I can't help but adore seeing Star's more naive, childlike nature carry over to the final show. And I guess in a way, the rivalry idea returned if you want to count the violent shipping wars that are out of the character's control, but personally I don't. Other than that, this all leads to one last question remaining. Would this have been a better show than the one we ended up with?
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Well, to answer that, I'm gonna do exactly what they did in that one Lumity and Starko chibi short and cop out. Because truthfully, it all depends on who you ask. People who like the show or people who don't, but if you ask me, it really is magical just how different the show is gonna be, regardless if the changes were understandable. Like, can you imagine if this was the show we got? Would it have been nearly as impactful if they released this during the Adventure Time era? Granted, a whole lot of canon events could have been prevented, but also it doesn't have this frame, so no, never mind actually, this would have tanked. Also, quick shout out to the other pitch Bible. This one leaked alongside a slew of other Disney Channel pitches about a year ago. While it's basically what the show turned into, there's a good amount of cut content, brief descriptions of episodes we never saw, like one where Star dates Oscar while fighting a monster. I mean, technically it did happen, but damn it, we needed more of my boy. A bunch of name changes too, like the Diaz's being named the Wands, and of course Marco was originally named Soul. Bad guy. That was for the Guilty Gear fans, you're welcome. And if that wasn't enough, there's some entirely scrapped characters, like this Rick and Morty have-an-ass blob who wanted to steal Star's hair like she's Mother Gothel or something. This idea might have been partially reused for the episode Sleep Spells, where this elephant creature tries to deepfake her and Star's face in order to escape from St. Olga's princess internment camp. Also, fun fact, this is the only episode where Star wears Marco's hoodie, which is a tragedy. The rest are mostly NPCs, like some teachers and a pre-TJ Miller Robbie from Gravity Falls, but reading their descriptions makes me think that some of them were reworked. Like Lenny here turned into Starfan 13, this old woman definitely turned into Meteora, and they reference Star's jetpack flying ex-boyfriend who's trying to win her back, so it's safe to assume that he eventually turned into my goat Tom after undergoing plastic surgery. Like seriously, who hurt this man? I'm saying this before we were supposed to know that Star liked the scent of Hoodie so much that he broke up with her. Sadly, this is where the buck stops. There's probably a million things in this show that were cut, but I only have so much time to talk about them. And if I did, it'd just be an additional 10 minutes of me crying that we never got a trans feminine Marco. Hopefully after watching this video, you'll gain some appreciation for the show we ended up with. Because after all, it could have stayed a simple, slice-of-life show about a little girl with an overactive imagination, to serve as a reminder of just how different this show was gonna be in a timeline without a Kitty Monk video essay about Starko. Or don't, finish the show as intended so you can look back on season 1 in its first draft just to say, wow, I miss when this show wasn't depressing. And if you're feeling spicy today, maybe watch a 2-hour Cartoonshi video while building a Lego set, I don't know. As for me, well, I'll take my sweet ass time writing my own AU fanfic where Tom and Marco go from being breakup buddies to smooch buddies, and they end up being canon. The end. I'm sure I won't copy Lumity in that One Owl House episode, guys. I mean, come on, who do you think I am?
Yeah, let's go! Woo!
Guys, this is history in the making. This is the greatest fucking show ever made.
Oh my god, she did the face! Holy shit, this is fucking awesome! Look at that!
That's gore of my comfort character. That's gore of my comfort character on screen. Look, she's super cute. Look at that. Okay, I take back everything. This show might actually be the best show ever made.